Over the years, I've come to realize that embracing my femininity, or what we refer to as femininity and softness, has really changed my life. One of the women that I admire in this world the most are women that are always put together. Like, that kind of content kind of turned me off around how you can make yourself more palatable to men, and in particular rich men. But it's just a shame really, because it really overshadows a side that is really needed for young black women like me, who may have not had the best relationships with their mothers. Hi guys, welcome to the Mo Junction. Welcome to another installment of Chit Chat with Mo, where we have controversial debates, honest conversation, and so much more. And in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about something quite close to my heart. I'm talking about my femininity journey, and I know some of you are already screaming you hate the word because of what the movement has kind of like turned into, or the connotations surrounding femininity and, you know, feminine energy and all those buzzwords. But I hope to offer you a different perspective today that maybe doesn't completely demonize the movement as a whole. I'm going to be talking to you about a personal thing that I kind of went through, you know, in my life. That sounds so dramatic. Definitely over the years, I've come to realize that embracing my femininity, or what we refer to as femininity and softness, has really changed my life. Femininity for me was very interesting growing up, and, you know, I'm a black woman. Obviously, I'm a black woman, and, you know, my upbringing might be similar to other black women out there. And in particular, I am Nigerian. I'm the firstborn daughter in a Nigerian household. So already, like you guys know, ding, 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 there's a lot of like responsibility there. There's a lot of needs to be conservative. I'm also Christian. So growing up, I was, you know, taught to be conservative. A lot of my experience around, you know, learning who I am as a woman was more around suppressing my womanhood, so I wouldn't grow up too fast, or, you know, how they say in like American slang, so you don't end up being fast. You know, there's this connotation around, if you start wearing makeup too early, for example, or you start dressing too sexy too early, for example, you're going to start attracting men, perhaps older men, just men in general, and then you're going to end up being fast, you're going to end up being a hoe, you're going to end up, you know, being loose, or, you know, all those very like derogatory terms that I used to like describe women in some instances. So in my upbringing in particular, I know that my parents, I know they did their best, but I know that my parents really didn't want me to stray off the straight and narrow. So I believe that was part of the reason why they didn't want me to discover certain things about what it means to be a woman, basically, what it means to be a lady, what it means to be grown and sexy. And also, like, my childhood was a bit chaotic. I'm not going to go into that too much in this particular episode, but I believe I was one of those kids that ended up having to raise themselves. Yes, I was raised, but then because of all the chaos of what was going on as I was growing up, I had to find out a lot of things for myself. If you are a follower of my channel, or you've been a follower of my channel for a while, you know I did a series called Journey to Forever, detailing my wedding planning process, and going back home to kind of save money towards the wedding was one of the first times that me and my mother bonded over like something as simple as like cooking. So the food I know how to make is not because my mom, you know, spent time like teaching me or whatever I learned on YouTube, for example, is what I'm trying to say. So I've had like yes, I was brought up very conservative and Christian and, on the straight and narrow, but then there's also a side of becoming an adult that I had to kind of learn from myself or learn from others, which is where I'm going with this whole like femininity thing. I remember discovering, I believe there's a few like femininity coaches. I remember discovering one of them and it was just a whole new world, and it was around the time that I moved out of my parents' house as well. And, it was a whole new world of, things that I hadn't previously been exposed to, things surrounding like how to be ladylike, from your parents to just the simple things, perfume collections, how to be presentable. One of the women that I admire in this world the most are women that are always put together. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean they have to be wearing like full glam makeup or whatever, but they really pride themselves on whenever they step out into the world looking presentable, and that wasn't something that was natural to me. I would say that I definitely operated in what we call the masculine energy, and I use that loosely now because I think I've kind of outgrown those terms and I find that they can be very limiting. I think sometimes what we're trying to describe are just normal traits. Looking presentable isn't necessarily a feminine stroke masculine, it's just an adult thing. Being softer isn't necessarily feminine or masculine thing, it's just being softer and just appearing and being able to accept help and be vulnerable in the world. So I use those terms loosely, but just because it's how we describe them in society today, so just don't take it too literally when I'm using those words. But yeah, I would say I was somebody that was very I was a bit more like rough around the edges. I don't care, like I'll go out in a scarf or whatever, I'll look very unpresentable. Yes, I will glam up every now and again, but then it was when I started discovering those kinds of content that I began to look presentable, not necessarily for other people but for yourself. And I think that's where that kind of content kind of turned me off. I would say that community or the majority of the community of the feminine coaches that I've seen online, especially what I'm seeing today on like TikTok and like the shorter versions of those kinds of content, it's all around how you can make yourself more palatable to men, and in particular rich men. It's all about what they like and trying to tailor your personality and your looks towards that, whereas it's kind of really overlooked a side that is really needed for young black women like me, who may have not had the best relationships with their mothers or may not have had direct access to other women teaching them the basics, feminine hygiene, for example, if we can, go as deep as that. How to look after yourself when you're on your period, how to avoid things like BV and thrush and how to treat that. Your sexuality, your sensuality, where to go if something's not going on right down. I think that those are the gems for me, or have been the gems for me. Building a perfume collection, how to dress nicely for your shape, your size, just all those things that I think in a normal woman to woman passing of rights down relationship, those things would be passed on and you would kind of try to emulate the women in your life. Another part of me embracing and getting into my feminine journey was, like I said, I moved out, started making a lot of friends, and it was in getting closer to those kinds of people that I learned about, this makeup collection or and this was all like much later. Yes, I did have some experience with them, but those are things I discovered myself. But it was nice for other women to kind of show me the way, or to express, or to give me advice on how to approach certain things. Like I really didn't learn about so many things until I was in those kinds of circles. A big part of my femininity journey as well was unlearning purity culture, and I'm not sure whether this episode is going to come before or after that one, I did an episode with Oriana about growing up Christian and purity culture and all the connotations that come with that, and how it can make you sometimes frigid and you don't embrace your sexy, because, you know, there's this whole thing about can you be saved and sexy, da 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 da. Unlearning purity culture really helped me to embrace my body, embrace my sexy, embrace my sensuality, all of these things that were kind of suppressed because of upbringing, and they don't want you to be a hoe, or and because of, you know, the Christian circles that I found myself in. The worst time in my life was probably when I went to a church called MFM, and this is no shade to them. I'm not, you know, bashing them or whatever, but they have a strict dress code. And imagine like a 15-year-old girl wearing like long skirts and just unflattering stuff kind of makes you feel like your body is a bit of a curse. Meanwhile, it's a huge blessing. Even beyond the sexy, I think a woman's body is art. I think, yeah, God really takes his time in molding each and every single one of us, and for that to just be hidden under horrible clothes in the name of not being a hoe, or in the name of being Christian, or in the name of modesty. Yeah, I'm really glad that I've unlearned that. And there's probably some Christian women that watch me today and or see the things I wear and think, no, like I could never do that. That's way too immodest. Each to their own. This is where I'm at. My understanding of modesty has definitely changed over the years. I'm not really going to discuss this in this video, but me and Oriana really went into detail. Unlearning purity culture really helped me to embrace my body. That kind of helped me reshape and, you know, explore different styles of clothing and really embrace my body for what it is, art. Growing up, I was really hairy, and that was a big thing for me. I remember like when it was time for like PE, and I'd like raise my armpits up, and like the other kids would laugh at me. It was so sad because I wasn't allowed to like shave. That's all part of, you know, getting into like womanhood, and you're gonna turn into a da-da-da-da-da. So I wasn't allowed to shave, and I had really thick like body hair. And it wasn't again until I got into like circles with other women, and I think it was one of my friends that said, oh, why don't you try waxing? I was like, are you sure? Like, just little things like that, you know, should be passed on from generation to generation. And now there's like a movement of women passing on that information. But like I said, I think it's gotten a bit to the toxic side. I was just saying to one of my guests today, and she was saying that, you know, she believes a lot of them are preying on, you know, women's desire and society's desire for women to be partnered up. So a lot of them are now using that as the content driver, I would say. They know that people love love. They know that society shapes and nurtures women to want to be in relationships, to be partnered up. So they prey on that. But it's just a shame, really, because it really overshadows the education that, like I said, young black girls, or even of different races. I'm just saying black women because I'm a black woman and that's been my experience. I don't know, you know, what it's like in other races and their experiences with like estranged mother-daughter relationships, or not having a circle of women around them that are like going to hold their hand and teach them certain things about womanhood. But yeah, maybe that's really what this video is about. It's not necessarily femininity versus masculinity. Maybe it's just becoming a full-grown adult woman, embracing my womanhood and transitioning from child to adult woman. Does that make sense? I would say that another side of this whole femininity thing for me, and again, I want to use that term very loosely here now because I'm going to talk about becoming more soft and becoming more vulnerable. Like I said, growing up, when you're like the eldest daughter, you have a lot of responsibility. You're there to look after your siblings and even your parents to some degree. And that kind of made me very, very independent, a hard worker, a grafter, someone that doesn't embrace help, someone that feels like she can do it all and do it really well and do it really excellently. And whilst those things are true or can be true, I got to a stage where I got really, really burnt out, and I started asking for help. I started allowing people to come in. Like today now we've got, you know, camera people helping out with the show. We're slowly building a team around the Mo Chunk show. In my day-to-day life, I don't feel like I have to show up as the hero all the time. Sometimes people can save me as well. So definitely I've become softer as a result of, some of the feminine content that I've kind of seen online. But I think that's just being human, just learning to be vulnerable. It's not necessarily just in alignment to being feminine. It's just allowing yourself to be helped. Like, that's definitely been a huge part of my healing process as well, in terms of my past, my background, where I'm coming from. And I believe so strongly it's going to be a solid foundation for where I'm going. The fact that it's not just me. I believe no man is an island. You're going to need people to support you in your personal life, in your career, whatever it is you're trying to achieve. I would say that's definitely been a huge part of my journey as well. As I think about things and, like I said, my relationship with my mom, it was there, but it wasn't there like, having to assume a lot of like responsibility from a young age. And yeah, I wasn't as nurtured as I would have loved to be, sadly. Like I've kind of pointed out throughout the episode, but there were certain things that I would have loved for my mom to pass on to me. Just how to be like ladylike, how to show up in the world, how to embrace my sexy. I would say that one thing she did pass on to me was a flamboyant dress sense, because my mom is she's like a socialite. She loves party. So that's the one thing I would say that she definitely passed on to me. But I think maybe in that scenario as well, in regards to embracing your sexy, I guess you can't give what you don't have. I would say that she was probably brought up very conservative as well. So that conservativeness is what she passed on, if that makes sense. But definitely things like body care, feminine hygiene, feminine care, and also relationships as well. Like, I'm sure a lot of black women can probably relate to this. And again, I'm speaking as a black woman. In terms of relationships, I'm sure so many African women can relate to stay away from boys, you're going to get pregnant, throughout your entire education, your time in education. And then, when you finish university, where's your husband? Which is all very ironic. And I get that they're trying to protect us and stuff, but there was never that healthy balance of, okay, if you're seeing a guy, just in case something happens, or here's how you can protect yourself, or do you know what, let's go to the sexual health clinic, let's get educated on these things. And just beyond even just the sexual health and feminine hygiene stuff, just how to relate with men. I don't know whether any of you can relate to that, just those dynamics in terms of men-women relationships and getting into romantic relationships, not knowing how to navigate them. I think a lot of us have had to just kind of find out. I know a lot of people don't like to hear this, how to cater to your mains. And I think even probably on the guy side as well, I don't know if there's a lot of them that were taught this is how to cater to a woman. Yeah, I definitely don't think my dad had that conversation with my brother, like, buy her flowers. If you did, you're lucky, okay? Yeah, and also, of course, not really seeing that healthy representation as well growing up, and then not being taught as well. It's like a double whammy, it's a double layer of ignorance. And again, I learned a lot of that from the outside. For a lot of these things, you take it with a pinch of salt. I do think a lot of them need to be shut down, but I think there are some gems in there somewhere in the rubble. And obviously, I think not every woman wants to be feminine. I think that's something very important to put out there. And like I said, it's what we call feminine. Not every woman wants to be soft all the time. Not every woman wants to present themselves, I don't know how to describe this, as soft and vulnerable, and that's okay. For me, I embraced the feminine journey because it was something that I knew was missing and I knew was suppressed in me for a long time, all in the name of molding me into a conservative woman. But I also wanted to say, and I did say, I believe femininity is way beyond attractive men. I think for me, the biggest thing has been my personal development and embracing my womanhood, embracing my sexy, my body, my sensuality, and all that great stuff. But I did notice the softer I became and the more vulnerable I became, my relationships as a whole improved. So this isn't just like romantic relationships. This was like friendships. This was in my career relationships. I was able to allow love into my life when I became softer and more vulnerable. And again, I don't really think that's being feminine. I think that's just being human. That's becoming a more vulnerable human and experiencing a more vulnerable and open human experience. But that's not to say that it's a blueprint. I think that's the danger there, or that's the danger with some of the feminine content we've seen. They've created or act like they're creating a blueprint for relationships and especially romantic relationships, but I'm not here to say to you embrace your femininity and you're definitely gonna get into a long-lasting relationship. That's not how the whole thing works. And so, in conclusion, I believe we all have a level of femininity and masculinity within us, or what we ascribe to be femininity and masculinity in society today. I believe we experience a myriad of emotions, and part of the journey to becoming more human or becoming more whole is embracing all those different sides to us and knowing when one is needed. For example, in the workplace, I might need to be more assertive, or even in the home, there might be things that I need done and I need to be more assertive in those moments. Those are traits that we sometimes ascribe to the masculine. And, there might be moments where I need to be more soft and vulnerable, and those are traits that we ascribe to the feminine. All in all, it's all about experiencing and embracing all those myriad of emotions and the different sides that make us human. And also just to emphasize that, softness isn't just all about the feminine, it's just about being human. And, just before Abigail, one of my guests, just before she went, it was her quote, but I thought it was so profound and really powerful. She spoke about how sometimes, men are not nurtured to be soft and vulnerable, or are not brought up in that way. They feel like they have to hold it together all the time and not being whole enough to explore the softer side of the human experience, or the softer side of being human, all in the name of the masculine. My question to you guys is, what have been your experiences when it comes to, embracing softness, your femininity, changing some of the ways in which you show up in life and the way you approach life? Has there been any changes? Have there been any results, any blessings that have been attracted to you as a result? Let me know in the comment section down below. And that's all I really have for you guys today in terms of Chit Chat with Mo. Do make sure you if you liked it, share it with your friends. Comment below on the things we spoke about and subscribe to this channel for more. Until next time, guys, peace and love. Peace and chunks.